Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm back on the old crappy laptop. I'm going to be like this for the rest of the week, so you'll have to just stick with it. I'll make these videos as short as possible because I imagine that the production value is unbearable. So looking at the weekly, we bounced from a $49,000 flat, a nice round number for Noob Master, even down to the cents. So, that's nice. There's clearly a lot of buy orders down there. Otherwise, it's perfect, isn't it? It's perfect. $49,000 flat, perfect. But the weekly hasn't really shown anything of any importance other than that bullish divergence on the money flow index that I spoke about yesterday, which again is not going to be confirmed until we see a the weekly close. I mean, we do have this bullish divergence, 1 and 2, but it would be great to have seen a third. This again is just a weekly, so we're going to have to wait a little while. If you really want to get a heads up on what's going on, as of this very moment in time, take yourself down to a 4 hourly. You'll do this across the board, and you'll see that despite the bounce being really nice, 49,000 up to 56,000 is a decent bounce. It's most likely a dead cat bounce at the moment, really. So we've managed to reclaim ever so slightly, and probably looking like we're going to lose it right now. It's still very early days. The 10 exponential. And we haven't even touched the 21 or the 20 moving average, which is currently sitting up here at 57,405 or 600. And that's, I would imagine, where a much crisper and clearer rejection would take place. If it breaks, though, we are looking for a move all the way up to this death cross retest, 63,200. That's easily achievable once this area has been broken. But for the moment, it's not. It's not. None of this should come of any surprise to any of us, though, if you're members of the Patreon or you subscribe to the channel. We're talking about all these dead cat bounces on altcoins and how they're going to move into their death cross retests and get rejected from there, come back down to where they started from, and maybe even break down. I mean, that was where we left it on the last Patreon. We were talking about it 2 weeks before that. Every stream that we did over these last few weeks, always talking about that. We're going to get this rally in altcoins, which we got. I stood back and said it's absolutely not going to be an alt season. It's a rally, and it could be between 20, 30, 40, or 50%. Some of them did 80%, and they moved into the death cross retest, and then what? Perfect rejections, back down to square one, and now they're breaking down from there. This is why I was always inverting the scale, so making sure everybody was able to check their bias. You invert the scale on most of those altcoins, they look bullish. You return back to normal, and then you're like, oh, right, okay, yeah, of course. If you invert the scale, it's bullish. Bring it back to normal, it's bearish. So none of it should come of any surprise to those who subscribe and those on the Patreon, because we talked about it week after week. Before the altcoin rally, when the rally was taking place, as we were hitting top targets, and then what to expect when we got there. So none of this really comes as any big shock to me. It's just not shocking because it's all of this has been foreseen, for months in advance, really. We're talking about this summer consolidation all the way back in December, and we were talking about it more and more and more as the rally was getting higher and higher, and I was telling everybody to not get used to high prices because they were high prices for that portion of the market. Now that we're all coming down, everybody's expecting huge, horrendous crashes and massive capitulations and blah, 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 blah. But really, all of this was foreseen, as far back as December for me. And it was all part of this much bigger plan, which is to take part in buying these enormous pullbacks because the market is not ready and was not ready to go parabolic. It will likely still go parabolic next year. It was never gonna do it this year. And yeah, on my Telegram, people have been saying, there's a few comments on saying that this bull market is very different to the last one. It's not. This is a more stable bull market than the last one. 2019, 2020, they both had alt seasons, significant ones, 10, 20x's on some of those altcoins that completely retraced back to square one. Well, they did that both years. 2019, it did a massive alt season, returned back to square one. 2020, massive alt season, returned down to square one. It's only 2021 when they all went up to and for the most part, new all-time highs. And guess what? 2022, back down to square one for the most part. So it is very much a carbon copy of the previous crypto cycle, just a little bit more stable, believe it or not. I know it doesn't feel like it if you bought the top, but it is very much more. I'd say it's more stable, but it's still a carbon copy, which is why I'm adamant that buying into these lows and any more lows that follow is a great idea if you're well if you're me. I'm not saying if it's you. For me, because I plan to buy as much as I can, altcoins specifically. I got too many Bitcoins. Well, not too many. No one can have too many, but I got enough Bitcoins. It's all about the altcoins really, and I'll be selling those between this time next year and maybe towards September, where I feel like the market will have peaked at that point. Again, there's only so many times you can make a video on a weekly chart. People aren't going to tune in for that. Hang on a minute, you said the same thing as you said yesterday. Yeah, it's true, I did, because it's still the same, and it is still the same now. The price action, day to day, is always going to be dramatic if you're looking at these shorter term time frames. But week to week, it's exactly the same as I expected. It predicted the alt season in October, exited the alt season around December, and now getting back in for when the new alt season is likely to continue. And we could even be seeing it now, really. And I don't want to. I'm not going to. If you've made it to this part of the video, then fine. I'll end the video with that. Well, I'm going to talk about a potential alt season, which is gonna. I'm not going to say anything on the bloody. I'm not going to say anything on my. I'm not going to make clickbait for that. People will hate it, but it's true. So we're looking at this on. This is the US 500, S&P 500 on the monthly, coming down to test a perfect 10 exponential where we're finding a bounce right now. It's not normally a decent place to get a bounce. We've had them in the past. We had a big move down here and obviously rallied up. Then we had this bear market, which is fine. We reclaimed it, had a rally, broke down below it here. So we might still be looking for lower on S&P, maybe down towards 4,787, maybe down to 4,700 flat. These are the areas that you might be seeing later on this month, maybe over the next couple of months for the S&P, which is obviously going to carry Bitcoin and crypto down with it because it's a much bigger market. One thing that does concern me, I should mention, if you look at the momentum over here, it has been drying out now for a couple of years. This is Capital One's monthly, by the way, so it's going to be more volatile. The S&P or SPX is going to be different, but we do have several drives of bearish divergence over here. Money flow index is still quite high for what it's worth. On a monthly, it is quite high, sitting around 70. It can obviously go higher, but it is quite hot for a monthly. So a larger pullback is still required, I'd say, to reset any of that. And that pullback, 4,700 down to the center of this Bollinger Band, that 20 monthly, easily can be seen. Right, so let's just finish this off with a potential alt season. Give you a little bit of hopium, although I don't think hope is a way to trade. You've got to have a conviction in what you're doing. If you don't have a plan, then you plan to fail. This is all part of my plan anyway, so I'm not particularly bothered. I'm on holiday as well, by the way, so I'm certainly not going to be entering into any Bitcoin rotations. Most of my Bitcoin, the vast majority of it's in cold storage back at home anyway, so I can't really access it while I'm away anyway. But even if I did have access to it, I probably would refrain from it until I saw some better signs. So the Bitcoin dominance chart is where we'll end this, and I alluded to it yesterday, although my computer, while I'm away, is not happy. It's never been a happy laptop, but it's particularly unwell at the moment, I would say. I'm not really sure exactly why the problem is. It's probably because it's never turned off, to be honest with you. I just finished using it and turned the screen, just closed the screen. Thinking about it now, I don't think I've turned it off in years until yesterday. Right, so looking at the Bitcoin dominance chart over here, we'll stay on the monthly so it's easier to see. The first major area where an alt season could take place is within this zone, this box, starting from 57%, ending at 58.5%. Obviously, the higher you go, the more dramatic an alt season would be if and when it takes place. The thinking about having an alt season after a giant crash like this, might seem unreasonable because there's fundamental reasons for this crash. There's a number of reasons for this crash, and whether you believe one over the other or all combined, or you also think that perhaps maybe all these charts were consolidating anyway, and you can leave the fundamentals out of it and just recognize that the charts were still consolidating, creating lower highs and a lower low. Maybe not inevitable, but was certainly on the cards. So if we're going to just stick to pure technicals, an alt season is possible from this area, this boxy area, where we have seen sort of a major bounce from here. This is where Bitcoin did its significant rally, a 300% rally, leaving altcoins in the dust back in 2020, and then from there the biggest alt season of our lives. That's where we all became, well, I don't know if we all became millionaires, but we all certainly did very well out of that because we managed to trade it appropriately, getting the double top and getting into those altcoins, rotating those bitcoins. Now, this is a less volatile chart because the market is generally heavily diluted with lots of altcoins, lots of stable coins, and so it's a much more slower burn on this time around. But it's still a relevant chart as far as I can tell. And so if you're going to get any kind of alt season, it could begin from this box. And if it doesn't begin from this box, I would imagine this being the top. 62% dominant, which is still a way off right now. That can happen in a Bitcoin breakout, it can happen in a market pullback, it can happen in all kinds of ways. This is just telling you where a rotation may take place, if it takes place at all. Remember, charts aren't everything. You can't bet your life savings on a chart. Charts can be invalidated for the better or for the worse. And at the moment, despite the chaos that we saw in the last 24 hours and this huge bounce, we are currently getting rejected from an area where an alt season's potentially, well, I'm not going to say it's likely, but there is a chance of an alt season from here. And the alt season could take you from 56% dominance all the way down to maybe 51% dominance, which is, again, small in comparison to what it looked like before. But remember, in a diluted market, you're going to get smaller moves on the dominance chart. A small move on the dominance chart, it could still equate to several 100% for an altcoin if you get the right one at the right time. So, that being that and this being this, I think the best thing to think about would be, if you're looking to trade this, the bounce is most likely over right now. I wouldn't feel comfortable buying or trying to trade into any positions today. I feel like yesterday's trade was good. I did a couple of leverage positions I've showed on my Telegram. That was good. But right now, it's still weak. We've still got death cross. We're still below most moving averages. We're still below the center of the Bollinger Band, which gives you 65% more likely to remain in the lower portion, which makes it feel very realistically like we're going to come back down to where we started from and maybe even make a new low. But look, I'm not going to say that is the absolute definite thing that's going to happen. It may not. I'm prepared to just sit and chill for the most part, as I am on holiday to begin with. Yeah, I'm still enjoying those October alt season rallies from last year. This is all part of my big plan. Sit back, watch, wait, chill, allow for the consolidation, dollar cost average into major moves at major supports, let your limit orders complete, and then sell next year, really, from much, much higher areas than we are at right now. But if we just finish off with the S&P still quite bullish on a monthly, despite offering further downsides, absolutely, completely, acceptable to assume further down. I don't know if anyone saw the VIX, but the VIX really spiked above 40. That's normally a peak for the VIX. You go down to the daily, there's a 200 exponential moving average retest. So again, more weight, more validity to the idea that this potentially is a major area for not just a bounce, but a V-shaped recovery. Maybe that will be the title for today. The V-shaped recovery for stocks. It could easily happen. I'm not joking. People get too tied up in the here and now and the minute to minute, and they fail to recognize what a much larger, more prepared plan looks like. And if you're ever going to get a V-shaped recovery from any chart ever, you'll get it from an area like this. And there you go, just above 5,000 really. We could come down to the 200 simple moving average, 5,048. This is all absolutely perfectly fine for a V-shaped recovery, and I'm not joking. You can get a V-shaped recovery and then continuation from exactly what we're seeing right now. 10 exponential monthly, 200 exponential daily. That's what you look for. That's what you would expect to happen. It's more likely to give a V-shaped recovery than to break down, but it's not a guarantee. Right, there you go. I think the V-shaped recovery is what I'm going to use as the clickbait, and it's based on what we see, so it's not a load of nonsense. Right, thanks for watching. Sorry for the poor production value. Hopefully that has been useful. If you want to join the Patreon, links in the description. If you want to join the Telegram, also links in the description. Other than that, hope you have a nice day. Take it easy.